Aloha, I'm Diane Wilson from the Hawaii Writers Guild. Welcome to Write On, a series of videos with tips, instruction, and inspiration for all of you writers out there. Today's episode is focused on those of you who want to write but don't know how to get started. Leading today's session is Laura Burkhart. Laura is a prose and poetry writer with 2 books of poetry, Venus Rising and Watermarks. She's had fiction, poetry, and nonfiction published in literary journals and broadcast on radio. As well as teaching writing, she's worked as an editor and literary midwife. Recently, she was managing editor of the Hawaii Writers Guild's first issue of its online literary journal, Latitudes. Laura holds an MFA in fiction and poetry from Vermont College. She's lived on the Big Island of Hawaii for 16 years. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you, Diane. I'm happy to be here.
Can you start us off by telling us why you want to talk to beginning writers today?
Sure. I was contacted recently by several people who had ideas for a book or other piece of writing they wanted to do and didn't know how to start. So I thought I would like to talk today about 3 aspects of writing to help people get started and have a successful experience.
Okay. Well, you started us off strong. You mentioned 3 aspects. Can you tell us what the first aspect is?
Sure. I like to call this one develop a mindset for success.
Okay. And how do you develop a mindset for success?
Well, it has to do about expectations, and there's a Canadian writer named Diane Schoenperlin who has this wonderful quote that I just find so useful. She said, I'm just going to read it here. She says, I mean, what can you expect of writers anyway, when they're prone to sitting around all day with their heads full of events that never happened, to people who never existed, while conducting conversations that never took place in carefully decorated rooms that will never be built. So that just, I mean, that's just a context, right? It makes me laugh as well and not take myself so seriously. So lower your expectations. Don't presume to write the great American novel or win the Pulitzer Prize for your poetry if you've never picked up a pen, or even if you've been writing for decades. Write because it gives you pleasure. Write because if you don't, you'll explode or become really cranky and difficult to live with. I'm very familiar with that last one. Don't expect other people to read your writing, much less enjoy it. So basically what I'm saying here is don't look outside of yourself for encouragement. Learn how to encourage yourself. Don't let your partner critique your work, unless, to paraphrase Margaret Atwood, you were planning on ending the relationship anyway.
Good advice. So how do you go about developing this mindset for success?
Okay, well, that just moves us directly into the second theme, which is to create a supportive writing space. And that's the place in your immediate environment where you'll spend most of your writing time.
Okay. So tell us, I'm very anxious, what you have as far as your supportive writing environment. Do you have a special spot in your home?
Well, I personally use my home office to write, but there's certain things that I do in there to make it work for writing. I mean, it's also, just as an aside, it's also fun to go out and write when we can leave our homes. Go out and write in a coffee shop or sit in a park or go, you know, a fun thing that I used to do was go and eavesdrop on conversations and use them as writing prompts. So the home space will be different for different people depending on their needs. So it can be as simple as a chair and a table on the lanai, or as elaborate as you want. So, but I did look at a number of questions that I came up with to ask yourself when choosing or designing a writing space. So the first one is to envision the ideal writing space. And then to look this is within your home or your environs, right? So, and to give each reasonable and unreasonable space a try. So that basically means testing it and writing in it to see how it works for you. So if your ideal space doesn't exist, you can create it. You can push furniture around, clear out the junk room, move a table by a window or by it facing a blank wall, build or knock down a wall. The sky is the limit. Now, if you already have a writing space, as I do, and probably as you do, Diane, look at it in terms of the space you envisioned and see how you might want to rearrange it to fit your vision. And then the next question is, what features about the space invite you to write? Is there anything about it that distracts you from writing? And what is that? And then if you come up with, oh yeah, there's this problem and this problem and this problem, just brainstorm with yourself 3 solutions to address the problem and then pick one and see what happens. It seems like this may take a bit of time to design your space, but it is time well spent in my experience. You want to create a space that invites you to write as soon as you step inside. So the other part of that is decide what you will and will not do in your writing space and make a list and hang it up. So as I mentioned, my writing space is also my home office. So when I sit down to write, I have to clear away all these files that are just blaring, urgent, urgent, urgent. I turn off my phone. I don't check email. I close the door. And it's also important to include on your list the things you will allow into your writing space. For example, my dog can come in because she lays on her mat and is quiet. However, my cat would decide to come and take a nap on the keyboard, so the cat's not allowed. It's important to hang this list of things that you will and will not allow in a place where you can see it every time you come into your office, so you can recommit to it every time you sit down to write. And it's also important to remove from your writing space anything that you don't like, that you don't use, and that doesn't inspire you.
Laura, I wish I would have talked to you a few years ago before I started my serious writing, because I did a lot of trial and error, and I had a space that I thought, this is going to be my space. I don't think I've ever sat at it to write because it just never felt right. So I did have to do a lot of moving around and trying things, including, and I'm curious your thoughts about this, I tried some music in the background. Do you use music or do you recommend it?
You know, it depends. If I'm writing prose, sometimes I would put on the favorite music of my, if it's from the point of view of a certain person, I would put on the music that that person would listen to help me just move into that mindset. But I personally prefer quiet, usually when I'm writing, because I'm so easily distracted. Mm-hmm. And, you know, first thing, you know, I'd be up there dancing instead of writing. I mean, which is fine because it's good to take a break from your writing and move the energy. So, but,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've reined in your expectations. You've got us to prepare a writing space that works. What's the next step?
Oh, this is the fun part. I mean, it's all fun, but invite the muse. Invite the muse to join you.
You make that sound easy. How does one go about doing that?
Okay, yeah. So there's basically 2 things. Be available. So you've got your basics, you've got your writing space, and then bring in willingness. And, you know, because I've been known to sit in my writing space and just watch the timer until it goes off, right? So willingness is really important. And then the other important thing is to show up consistently, because the muse will come to expect to see you at a certain place and a certain time, and we do not want to disappoint the muse. Toni Morrison said, we are traditionally rather proud of ourselves for having slipped creative work in there between the domestic chores and obligations. I'm not sure we deserve such big A pluses for that. And what I have found is, and it's, oh my gosh, J.K. Rowling said, you know, people seem to forget that I actually need time to write the books. So it's important to carve out the space and the time, and to let people know that you're not available during that time. So any amount of time that works for you is good. So you might choose a certain number of minutes each day. You might choose which days you will write and for how long, but it's important to be very specific. So, for example, I will write Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings from 6:30 to 7 a.m. before I leave for my day job. Or for the next 30 days, I will spend 1 hour every weekday evening writing instead of watching TV. Or every weekend, I will devote Sunday afternoon to writing. Or during my lunch hour, I will go for a walk for 15 minutes and then write for 15 minutes. So everyone will know what they can commit to. And I find it's really important to set reminders on my phone, because I get caught up in things and the reminder goes off and goes, oh yeah, in 5 minutes, I'm going to sit down and write because the muse is waiting for me.
Oh, these are excellent suggestions. So do you have any final words of encouragement for the beginning writer?
Sure. The first one is write when you're fresh. So develop a ritual to clear your mind so you can focus. And this might be a physical ritual, like turning off the phone. You know, when we all had landlines, Diane, I worked with a writer who put his phone in the fridge when he wrote, so he couldn't hear it ring. You can ceremoniously bring out your favorite pen and notebook, or it could be a combination of mental and physical rituals, like when you come into your writing space, write down everything that's on your mind that might distract you and put it in a box with a lid while you write. Everyone can find a ritual that works for them, and I would encourage people to feel free to experiment with many. The goal is to enable you to focus on the task at hand. So the next final tip, because I have 3 of them, is when you leave your writing project, leave it at a place where you can pick up right away when you return. So that might be the next sentence or paragraph or idea for a scene you plan to write, or the next image you want to explore. Having that to look forward to will build excitement to return and momentum once you do sit down. And that way you won't be staring at a blank piece of paper all through the next writing period, cursing the muse. So, and finally, I would say most of all, have fun. Because if writing isn't enjoyable, it will end up on the to-do list, and we all know what happens to those.
We have a few too many of those these days, I'm afraid. So, okay. Laura, thanks so much for sharing your knowledge with us today. I hope that this will provide the viewers with, and our new writers, with the skills they need to open that laptop or pick up that pen and start writing. For more information about writing and about the Hawaii Writers Guild, go to www.hawaiiwritersguild.com and write on.